Welcome to the Walk in Victory podcast, where we sit you at the feet of the masters. My name is Carla, and I'm excited to introduce you to our host NaRon Tillman, recording from the bustling borough of Queens, New York. On this show, we dive deep into the journeys of individuals who have overcome tremendous challenges to achieve their goals. Through their stories, we hope to provide you with inspiration, guidance, and strategies for your own journey towards victory. So get ready to learn from the masters themselves as we explore the triumphs and struggles that make success possible. Let's dive in. And now here's our host, NaRon Tillman.
Good afternoon, good day, good evening. I don't know what time you're listening or where you're listening from. It's your boy, Lipman, and you are with me for another episode of Walk in Victory. Speaking of victory walks, we only have one body. In this body, we have cells, neurons, atoms, protons, and all those other things, ons and ons. But a lot of times, especially coming from the demographic, and I'm not shy about the story where I came from, and we weren't educated about how there was an effect on stress management and how it affects our body when you juxtapose that with eating and lifestyle and how it affects our body. When you will compound that with environment, whether it be the air that we breathe in the city, we cut down all trees, so we don't really even appreciate the fact that the oxygen that the trees gives is necessary for us to have optimum health. And we don't breathe properly. We don't sit erect. We don't do the things that helps our gut, that helps our blood flow. We have the same blood running cyclically through our bodies over and over again, and we don't even stop to think about it. But we will stop to look at how we look physically on the outside. We will look at how we dress up on the outside. And if we only took the same amount of care, the same amount of attentiveness to what we're fueling, the thing that we want to look good on the outside, inward. It's like buying or having a Mercedes and you find out that you got an Ultimate engine. There's nothing wrong with Ultimates. So shout out to all my people who have Ultimate. But if you pay the money for a Mercedes, you don't want to have an Ultimate. I remember one of my friends, he brought a luxury car. I'm not going to say his name. He may be listening. I doubt it, but he may be. You never know. He brought a luxury car, and after he got the car, he realized that they charge for the tags. He had, if you want the Lexus sign or whatever sign, they charge extra. So he came out of a lot with this car, and they had no idea. Kind of no name brand car is this? Oh man, they charge extra for the. I'm like, yeah, but if you're going to spring for it, then go all the way. And if you're going to spring for better health, don't just talk about it. Go all the way. Don't wait. Now it's August for all my revolutionists, New Year's revolutions. Right? Don't wait now talking about, after Christmas, I'm going to start getting myself together. No, the process of getting yourself together starts the moment that you start to believe or start to think that you can get yourself together. And in an era of true transparency, I was unable to work out for the last couple of weeks. I had some nerve damage in my neck, and I'll be 49 next month. Now, let me show you what happened. I didn't work out finally. I just started back this week, and now I can do like workout stuff. But within that span of 2 weeks, boom, your belly started to say, "Oh, here we go." All those things started to, and it's okay. Like I'm in the mirror, like, all right, like I gotta try to get with it. But my body was saying that it needed a rest. So there will be periods of time when you need rest. We're going to talk about the psychosomatic along with what our bodies is telling us and how to harmonize those things. And I'm happy to be able to have that conversation with Dr. David Lipman. How are you, sir?
I'm superhuman and getting younger by the day. Thank you for asking.
I like that. I'm gonna use that. I'm superhuman and I'm getting younger by the day.
You got to come to my office first, NaRon.
I will. I will. I'm going through, and I have an older gentleman chiropractor that has helped me to on my dilemma. I had a car accident some years ago, and I went the holistic path of healing, and it came, and I didn't even realize what was going on with the body. And after I met with the doctor, and he said I had some pinched nerves in my neck and the bone, like some whatever was going on, which had my back, so I'm stiff, and I'm trying to do all of the things that I would normally do to help someone who has a back issue with stretching. And it was the pain was on the muscle in my right under the shoulder blade. Right, figure out, and so he's an older gentleman, somewhere in his 80, and he's one of those old school guys that can just look at you and say, and I was sitting there like mesmerized. He said, "Oh, somebody look like they're in a lot of pain." And I'm like, you try to act like we're not,
Man,
yeah,
man up.
But what after my dealing with him, and then I'll give you the floor. I went to bed, and after he told me what was wrong, I'm like, how do I get a pinched nerve in my neck? And then I'll do a highly active yoga practice. I didn't do this in yoga. And as I was sleeping, the car accident came back. And when I woke up in my subconscious, I woke up and I had the same, it felt like I just had the accident. And I was like, oh, that's what happened. Because I had to go to him 2 days in a row in order for him to relieve.
To unwind that tension that built up there again.
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, oh, that's what happened. I was able to share it with him. If you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, and you can start out, I usually don't get people where to start out, but how trauma lives in the body, and sometimes it can reoccur.
Yeah, that's a great point. So the way I started my career, I really started when I was 10 years old. I started working out. And at the time, it was really because I was living in a bit of a challenging environment. And so that's what motivated me. And then there was a kid next door whose father was into martial arts, and he inspired me to get strong, meaning exercise and make that part of my life, and to get healthy, meaning get off of Captain Crunch and Wonder Bread and start eating real food. And so that was really where this all started for me at that young age of 10. And when I was 15, I had a motorcycle injury where I broke my neck in 2 places. And so I hit the injury because I wasn't supposed to be on a motorcycle. And so I was dealing with it for a few years. But when I was 19, it got pretty bad. And I met a chiropractic student. I didn't even know what a chiropractor was. And he got me to the clinic, and he ended the pain with one adjustment that I'd had for a number of years. And that was like completely transformative to me. I was supposed to go into my family business, plumbing manufacturing. And I said to my dad, and it was the hardest thing I would tell him, Dad, I don't think I want to be a plumbing manufacturer. I think I have another direction. And fortunately, he was super supportive, and I just propelled myself into that chiropractic degree. And here I am today. But as a chiropractor, I've really taken a look at how does the body function? How do we help the function better in the body, those functions, and not look just through the microscope, but look from the 50,000 foot view of the body and understanding all the interactions instead of just looking at torn meniscus or herniated disc. How does the whole body work? And that's been my goal, to understand that as a practitioner, but also now, how do we optimize the body to be as healthy as possible? And it comes down to maximizing energy production at the cellular level, oxygenation, as you talked about, breathing oxygen earlier in the story that we're telling here. But these things are the things that I've learned and have implemented here in my office since we bio-optimize people to understand nutrition, because everybody's nutrition is different. We have different genetic factors that determine how we process the nutrients from foods and supplements and turn them into the things that we need to get in our cells to function. So we have a place where people can come and really learn out about themselves, because as you probably know, since the pandemic, a lot of people haven't felt good. I have people, I'm in my 60s. I have people 20 years younger than me that are walking around lethargic, brain fog, no energy, sleep horribly, depressed, anxiety. And these are just drop down effects of our bodies just not maximizing energy production. So that's where I'm coming from as a practitioner and from my own personal lifestyle.
As one who's talking about energy in the cells and looking at from a wide lens, how engaged are you with what science is looking at in terms of neuroplasticity and neuroscience and how it has advanced in the aid of helping bodies to become optimal and where we are?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we've long now since known that our brains will change depending on what's going on in our body. There'll be tissue changes. And so as an example, when somebody's in pain, chronically especially, that makes some changes in the brain and it changes the way the brain functions. There's a reduction of energy at the neural level in the brain as well as in the periphery of the body too. And so by the same token, we can also do things to turn that around to remake the normal neural pathways where we're not getting an overstimulation from chronic pain. And using these methods, we can get the brain to change back to new healthy brain tissue again, because of course, just like every cell in our body, it regenerates. So we want to promote regeneration of new healthy tissue as opposed to that tissue that's been losing energy, that's been aging quickly and causing the kind of changes that basically cause the lack of function at, our psychological level, our intellectual level, our spiritual level, even because part of our spirit lives through the body that we have as this vessel. So all those things have an impact of how our lifestyles and the things in our environment can be affecting us negatively. So we have to be warriors against that and fortify ourselves and remove obstacles so our bodies can function optimally, again, at the cell level, including as it pertains to neurology and the brain itself.
And it's funny because at one point, I remember that there's just been a sharp shift where everyone was talking about brain, and now everyone is talking about the connection between brain and neurology, neural pathways,
Mm-hmm.
the full body, and how we connect. What we start to see is it's not just one big mother brain, but there's 4 brains that need to be harmonized and operating together. Whereas if you're, depending on what your passions are, you may have your heart brain is dominating the thinking process. Your gut brain may be dominating the thinking process,
Mm-hmm.
or groin brain may be dominating the thinking process. And how does that work in terms of healing, where some people may have problems in their hips? You're looking at a broader sense of view. You're saying, okay, I can fix the hip problem, but the hip problem may reoccur if we don't fix the real problem, which is maybe underlying.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And this is a conversation I have with everybody because unfortunately, the medical community, and I think we as individuals tend to look at where we're feeling pain and think this is where the problem is. It's almost never where the problem is. It's where pain's being experienced because it becomes a weak link in the chain, so to speak. So to really find the genesis of problems, you're not looking at just one other place. Looking at the body again from that big, broad lens, we are one big interactive machine. We're an organic machine, but we have pulleys and gears, our joints, our muscles, and all of that stuff. What I say to my patients, the body functions together and it dysfunctions together. Where you're feeling pain is not where it's coming from, it's where it's ending up. But the focus on the pain itself is not going to get you where you're going to be able to unwind from a biomechanical standpoint, meaning how our bodies are bearing weight and how we're moving. It's restoration of the functional aspect of those things that have much more of an impact than any structural damage, a herniated disc, a torn labrum, a torn tendon. Those things tend to be the things people focus on, but they're not causative. They are resultant of poor mechanics, and it's the restoration of mechanics that's going to get somebody pain-free and functional. Look, I'm in my 60s. Do I have arthritis and spinal stenosis? Sure. I ruptured a disc and broke my neck. That all happened, but I'm pain-free, functional. I'm strong. I've been exercising for almost 53 years. And so understanding the way the full body works and getting the body to be functional every day is what the goal is. Not just looking at the hip pain or the low back pain or the elbow pain, looking how the whole thing affects all of it. And when somebody comes in here, I'm working on their entire structure from a re-engineering standpoint, getting them to be optimal in their weight bearing and their motion.
And you're almost like a sculptor, right? Because you're looking at
dynamically, not statically, but dynamically. Remember, it's like an erector set, not Lincoln logs.
Yeah, because what happens, there comes a point where for men, our body starts to produce more estrogen than it does testosterone. And we start to look in the mirror and we can see this happening and we really don't know it. But these are all internal things that can be fixed. Now, when you're not saying, hey, I can help you to produce more testosterone, but what you can do is open up those pathways that may be blocked to help that energy flow. Because when we're not producing the thing that's necessary for the body, it's still being produced. It's just not being kept. And you're opening the pathway to help it to sustain in the body.
Right. The body gets congested and lacks blood flow, lacks nerve flow. And if we don't have proper blood flow and nerve flow, our tissues can't function. We can't get the oxygen. We can't get nutrients. And without that, we can't make the things like testosterone or any hormone that we need to make if we're not getting the raw materials to the places that we need them to be. So that's absolutely. And there's other factors in our environment that block these things, block nutrition getting into us. There's toxins in the environment that actually block oxygen from getting inside the cell. And so those are a lot of things that, we're still warring with in this modern world. Centuries ago, we didn't have to deal with all these kinds of things like pollution. We were walking on the earth, so we got the magnetism to help us polarize every day. But now we're walking on concrete and we have all this electricity around us, which is, interfering where our cells communicate with each other, how we carry oxygen, how we bring nutrients in and out of the cells. So all of that stuff is piled on top of us, in addition to our own musculoskeletal bodies not functioning properly so we can get the flow, as you mentioned, up to everywhere in the body to need where we need this. We're much more sedentary now as a society. Where you and I are sitting down right now on a podcast, but a lot of people, this is their 8-hour-a-day job. They're sitting, they're not moving, they're not promoting that circulation. You have to do something every day to promote that.
When you started out, where do you see where the practice was then to, I'm not always use post-COVID, because I think that when the scientists had to go in and create vaccine and do a whole lot of things, they started to discover a whole lot of other things. It was that money wasn't always just put towards COVID relief. But where do you see, from where you started out, chiropractic and conversations that you would have with your colleagues, to where we are today in conversations that you're having now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the trend for me, and I always try to see where are things going, not tomorrow, but the next 5 years and 10 years. And very fortunately, one of the things that I see as a great paradigm shift is this idea of regenerative medicine, being able to do things that will build back our insides after we've had some years of mileage, let's say, on our joints and other organs in our body. Things like PRP, stem cells, exosomes. These are things that are starting to become a little bit more mainstream, whereas for years, people have been going out of the country to get these things done at very expensively too. And so now, fortunately, there's been a shift, and I've been to some recent trainings where their medical doctors are starting to say, you know what, we've been shooting cortisone into this knee for years, and all of a sudden we have to replace it. But here's a whole shift. Instead of giving somebody that, wearing it down till they have to replace it, how about we start rebuilding it using their own cells or some, donated cells that'll actually help rebuilding these tissues and getting those things to function again, instead of creating that other way around where you're treating symptoms until the point where the joint wears out. So that's one of the things that I've gotten into in the last few years, because I see that there's a branch of medicine heading in that direction. And I think that's one of the best things that can be happening, because unfortunately, again, since COVID, a lot of people, they don't feel well. There's been affected, whether it's by the COVID virus itself and how it's affected their cell membranes, their ability to bring in nutrients, and a whole host of other things in the environment on top of all that. So I have now made it a focus first personally, so I can optimize my health, learn these things, find these modalities, bring them in here, and then share them with people that might not normally or necessarily come across them.
When you talk about creating neural pathways and giving the brain function, I was listening to some really smart people on this lecture, and they was using words that I was like, I didn't understand. I knew what they was. I didn't understand what they were saying, but I knew what they were saying.
Understand? You didn't know the vocabulary, and that's okay, but you got the idea.
And one of those brilliant guys started to talk about chronic pain issues, and he says that if a person is living in chronic pain, and I'm going to paraphrase what he said, but I'm going to end it in the question, so it may be a little bit longer too. If a person lives in pain, the brain. He used a stroke. He used a stroke as
a metaphor, like a metaphor.
And he said, it's almost best. He said, we wait too long to help people who have a stroke. So by the time we start treating the stroke, the brain created these new neural pathways, and it's going to take longer to reverse the pathway. It's better to treat the stroke victim, the chronic pain victim, immediately after they have that trauma in the body. Hit the trauma immediately. And they said they've looked at that over the course of some years. If a person goes into a second stroke and you get the stroke right after they have the second stroke, even though they're in recovery, it's almost as if you hit it immediately, if the brain reverses quickly back to the original path, because that pathway is still there, but it's blocked. And the brain now has created a new pathway. And in order for that new pathway to merge with that old pathway, it has to almost happen immediately. Why don't we as practitioners, when I say we, I'm not talking about me, immediately attack these things? Or are we going to see a shift in that, being that this information is now starting to become available to us?
Yeah. There has been a shift already, and I've been doing what I've been doing for about 40 years. And I noticed that the sooner that somebody comes to see me following an injury, the quicker they're going to get back to function, because what you're talking about indirectly is how the body compensates for some kind of injury or loss or damaged tissue. And it's through that compensation that this new, more chronic compensatory thing happens, whether it's neurologically in the brain where we've had a stroke, or if it's somebody hurts their low back, herniates a disc, has a car accident. But I found that hands down, the sooner we can intervene and get that body back to normal functioning and not allow it to go into that compensatory loop, which becomes dysfunctional. The body's trying to find a way to stabilize itself, but it's doing it so dysfunctionally as opposed to in that normal functional way. Exactly the way you just put it. I see that play out musculoskeletally, neurologically, circulatory wise. Again, you lose some kind of circulation. Instead of waiting for the body to grow new capillaries and arterioles to do bypass and be an accessory, you want to try to get those, if possible, those original pathways lit up again, because then you're going to get that body functioning much faster and not go through that whole compensatory thing, because that becomes your new normal. And your new normal is more dysfunctional than functional. That's just the way the body is. So early intervention is key. Now, they've seen that. Years ago, somebody get a hip replacement, they'd be on their back for a week before they get them on their feet. Now they'll get them off the operating table. They're going to start walking right away, with back surgeries too, because they finally realized over time that the immobilizing thing was actually hurting more than helping, for all the reasons that you had mentioned at the beginning of this.
My grandfather had a stroke, and he went through the therapy.
Mm-hmm.
They would give him a ball. His left side was twisted, and his hand was stuck.
Mm-hmm.
But he said he noticed that the lady would come to his house once a day for 30 minutes, give him a ball and have him squeeze the ball. At first she would help him out, and then squeeze, and then he would do the tongue around the mouth. And he said, he told her to leave the ball, and he would sit down to watch TV and just squeeze all day. It took about 6 to 8 months. Because he was doing it now, because all of these new pathways were settled in. He's just giving it a remind. Say he woke up one day, he looked in the mirror and almost passed out. Everything was shifted back because he was constantly doing that with his tongue and he constantly doing that with both. But he had the wherewithal to go overtime. And I had another cousin who was paralyzed he was in a coma for some time. I think through Thanksgiving through Christmas, because it happened right around Thanksgiving through the New Year. And when he woke up, his eyes were moving. They said he'd never walk again. But he said that he would lay in the bed and look at his feet. And he would imagine his toe moving. And he kept imagining his toe moving. And one day he looked and the toe moved. And he thought to himself, if I can move my toe, I could walk again. And a few weeks later, he was walking again. Those are two things that I personally have lived. Are we seeing more and more of these stories and testimonies because of the way that medicine is advancing and taking in more even now, so the supernatural with the natural?
Yeah, those are two really good questions. I'll try to answer them together. First of all, I know you're a man of faith and I happen to be one too. So I know that spirit in all of us has a lot to do with if we're going to be a victim or walk in victory. And so there's a big aspect in it. And I didn't realize that when I was younger, but certainly growing up, I have. And it's played out many times, not just in my own life, but many patients. And I do see that more and more new age doctors, not new age in a sense, but younger generation doctors, they are now starting to see some of the shortcomings of the way they were initially indoctrinated. And a lot of them are reaching for these areas where they can start to look at, if you think you're going to get better, you're getting better. And if you don't think you're going to get better, you're not going to get better. So whatever you think, you're right either way. And so they see the power of that and the power of being intentional. And look, you're the one that's walking around in that body every day. I'm walking around in this body every day. No doctor's going to have the effect on me or on you the way you are on you and the way I will be on me. So that mindset is such a critical piece because it will direct not only our thoughts, but it will direct physiological changes in our body. That's actually a very old concept from centuries old. We've lost that in the modern world. We got too smart for ourselves, maybe. But that's coming back because that's innate in us. That's part of our created selves that we were, made to be. So that power to heal us has always been here. We've just, I think, began to tap into how powerful that really is for us as individuals. But having faith as its foundation is the biggest piece for me.
As we start to measure, now you've been in the pain industry for a long time. And one of the questions I do from scale of 1 to 10, how bad is the pain? And everyone thinks that their pain is a 10. Right? A 10.
If you walked in the place, it's not a 10.
But when you're living it, you're like, but
it's subjective.
When we're monitoring the brain waves and how it relates to pain, another thing that I've heard from another brilliant mind was that when we live in chronic pain or fear or anxiety, which can all be interconnected, it gives off a dopamine from the brain and the body begins to crave it. So even if I may be feeling good that day, like I wake up this morning, oh man, I've been feeling good all day. Then the body starts to say, oh no, I need to turn this thing up a notch. And that thing starts to come back. Because what they were saying is that the brain doesn't, the same way the brain craves food, the same way the brain craves love, whatever gut brain, whatever part of the brain that you're feeding, addictions and all of those things happens. It's the same dopamine hit. It doesn't matter what it is, but we have to start to create a new language, a new love language, so say with the brain, and really take control of the body and allow the brain to know that the brain does not control the body. The body actually controls the brain.
that's true in the sense that the brain is taking in information from the body in order to know how to affect the body. So there's always things coming in, sensory information, and there's always things coming out, motor information or creation of hormones or neurotransmitters. So it's true with chronic pain. And here's one of the things about pain that I don't know if a lot of people really understand. There's no equivalent to the amount of, let's say, structural damage and what that pain for that person's going to be experienced. Remember, we call this that 1 to 10 pain scale is subjective. It's not objective. It's how that person perceives their pain. Now, many people, like I said, don't know this, but the part of our brain that senses pain or feels pain from the special pain fibers that are in our nervous system is the same part of our brain where our emotions are. So how people feel about that stimulation of a pain fiber has a lot to do with how they experience pain. Here's an example that I see, and I think the contrast will make the point. When somebody comes in here to my office with pain and they don't work out, they're sedentary, for the most part, any level of discomfort of any kind is a very negative experience to that person. So any discomfort, any pain, again, very negatively taken, causes depression, anxiety, horrible experience. Now, people that work out, as an example, you worked out yesterday for the first time in a while. You had a great leg workout. Wow, I'm sore today. I had a great workout. I'm sore today. I had a great workout yesterday. A whole different mindset about how you're experiencing that same body sensation to your brain, but how you feel about it is very different. So people experience those pain sensations regardless of where they're coming to. Again, it's happening in the brain. So how people feel about that has a great deal of how they experience pain to begin with. Does that kind of make sense to you?
It does make sense. And it's funny that you would mention that because I've been doing interviews all day. I've been traveling since 4 this morning. I live a bit upstate and I'm down in Queens in the studio and I have some work to do here in the city. And I didn't get a chance to work out again today. As I've been doing interviews since 9 o'clock, editing videos, doing really just in my deep work grind. And I was like, okay, I got one more interview. And as soon as I'm done, I'm going to try to get in 50 push-ups because I don't want to get in 50 push-ups and try to do at least 40 sit-ups because I don't want my momentum from yesterday. And I want to see how my neck responds to that. I want to ramp it up just a little bit. And for you to say that, because that was my mindset going in, because it was like, all right, I actually feel alive. When I don't work out, I don't feel alive. And I know I'm alive, but I don't feel alive, right? It's like when you're taking your vitamins every day. In the beginning, the vitamins may give you a surge and you can feel the difference because you're close to not having any. And you got that vitamin D in you, you walk in the sun, you're feeling good, you're feeling all of this energy running through your cells. Regardless, whatever you're doing, if you take testosterone shots, you immediately feel it. You start to believe that's who you are. Then you stop taking vitamins or you stop doing the thing that helps you feel that way. And you're like, I don't know why I'm sluggish. Because somewhere along the line, you believe that I don't need this anymore. Right. We still need to see our doctors. We still need to come see the chiropractor. I'm actually now going to make the chiropractor a part of my toolbox. Like my chiropractor said, oh wow, everything else is aligned. You have a real nice spine. Keep doing what you're doing because I need someone that understands the structure to be able to say, oh man, you might be doing something here, because I'm teaching it to other people too. So when we talk about toolboxes, what are some of the things that you give your clients, your customers to put in their toolbox?
It's definitely, I've been getting adjusted since I'm 19. I'm 63 now. I have a colleague of mine that comes in every week. We exchange adjustments. So that's been the mainstay of just keeping the biomechanics of my skeletal system moving, which again, of course, helps bring blood flow, nerve flow, all of those things. But the way I work out now too is very different than I did when I was younger. When I was younger, I was able to lift heavy weight and do all that, but that doesn't serve me anymore. It put a lot of mileage on my joints that I probably could have done without. However, when I work out now, I'm making sure I do functional movements where my everyday life, and again, I've got some big guys that I'm picking up off my table. I'm 190 pounds. I got a couple of 280, 290 pound guys. So I have to pick them up and do my work on them effectively and not hurt myself or them in the process too. So I have to make sure that I am strong and agile for my daily tasks. So I tell everybody, you need to be an athlete for your everyday life. What your tasks are, what you're doing or not doing, even sitting for a long period of time, you have to do something to recharge your body, to let whatever that wear and tear in your daily life is not be as, you want to be able to be resilient to that. So exercise is essential, especially in a day when so many people sit for work and not up and around. And so, go ahead.
No, you was breaking up. So I just wanted to make sure that you're still there. Finish.
Oh, yeah. The other thing is there's been a lot of nutritional advancements where you can look at somebody's blood work and look nutritionally at what their body's able to process and what it can't process and what actual deficiencies they have inside their cells. It's not what's in the bloodstream. It's what's in the cells. Most doctors, if they look at vitamins at all, are looking at the bloodstream, but that's not a picture of what's in the cell. Once you know how somebody might have issues called methylation, mutations that they might have inherited from one or both parents, and see what they're not able to convert, you can supplement specifically for that and deficiencies. And that is a toolbox item that you need to have on a daily basis. These are things that your cells don't need for 5 months or 6 months. They need them every single day of your life. So that's another really important thing, but you can't just take supplements and throw the same one at everybody. It doesn't work that way. So I encourage people to really learn what's their customized plan that they need based on how their body is and what is that looking like. The other thing is a lot of people are living most of their lives inside. Years ago, we spent 90% of our time outside. Now people spend 10% of their time outside. So getting out into the sun, getting barefoot on the ground and doing some deep breathing exercises to get that oxygen in on a, daily basis is going to make a huge difference in how somebody's feeling on a regular basis. So once you commit to putting into your lifestyle these few items, and there's more to it, you could be doing cold plunges, infrared saunas, red light therapy, all these other things. If you are committed to be proactive on your health and you look at your health as an investment versus an expense, it's a whole different mindset. And you just have to be willing to take that responsibility and be your own doctor in that sense.
We've come a long way with patient-doctor relations where we had some traumatic instances, especially with the advent of opioids, where Big Pharma was getting some doctors to over-medicate and do things like that. And the patient trust went down. Do you see that turn where doctors now are taking more of a healing mindset than medication mindset, like what you're discussing right now, or let's get them well enough to keep coming back?
So that's something that's been a big focus in my industry and years. Again, my industry is based on getting the body to heal itself, remove those obstacles, get the circulation going, get the nerve flow going. But for the last 5 or 6 years since the opioid crisis was really identified and came out publicly, we have a lot of alternative companies like CBD companies, as an example, to help with pain reduction and reduction of inflammation with a natural product that really has very powerful ability to help somebody deal with pain while they're working, let's say chiropractically or through other modalities, to correct what's causing that pain to begin with. So I've seen that a lot in my industry. Unfortunately, in the medical field, I think it's still, the majority is still writing scripts for hydrocodone and anti-inflammatories and muscle relaxers, as opposed to taking a look to see, like, how can we not just treat symptoms, but how can we really get this person's body to be optimized and maximized to do its best healing? Because nothing can heal the body like the body can. I don't think the mainstream medical has gotten there yet, as much as some of the alternative healers in my industry, physical therapy, acupuncture, functional medicine doctors, osteopaths. I think I've seen more of those physicians and healthcare providers start to veer away from the drugs and really look at something that's more healthy and more corrective of the problem, as opposed to just treating a symptom. Again, pain management, pain's not a lifestyle. It's absolutely not a lifestyle. And the idea of managing pain just indicates that pain's somehow going to be your lifestyle and you got to learn how to manage it. Not my book.
When we talk about the last question, inflammation, and I'm glad that you brought that up because I cannot sit down with you without discussing the inflammation, which is a huge cause. Now, there's some pain issues that come through accident, through some traumatic event that you didn't have any type of responsibility for.
Mm-hmm.
There's other pains that come that we have to take full responsibility for because of the inflammation in our body, which can come from an overdose of chicken. Yes, I'm using the word overdose. Overdosing chicken. Because chicken has a lot of mucus in it, and or just eating the wrong food and fueling our bodies the wrong way, which causes inflammation. And then as we're doing that, compounding that years and years of time without digesting, without working at digestive tracts properly and stuff like that. So we have all of these in Chinese, the qi energy just muscling together in one area of our bodies or another, and then it settles in. We ignore it, and then it settles in because it's easy to ignore sometimes pain or to medicate it with Advil or whatever when I didn't have an accident. I don't know why my back is hurt like this. Why is my neck so tense? So we don't realize that we need to see somebody to get it treated. Where if we had a cold, the first thing we do, if the cold stays long enough, we go and see about the cold. When inflammation settles in the body, in the joint, in the neck, in the lower back, because it usually starts in those areas, in the elbow, fingers, wherever it can settle in at. When should we start to look at, all right, I have this inflammation here, or I'm having something, even we don't know it's being caused by inflammation. I need to go get it checked out.
So great question. And there's a lot of layers to that question because, as you mentioned, inflammation in the body in general is a body defense mechanism. It's how, when we do have injury, we start that cascade of regenerating and remodeling and healing that tissue. So inflammation is a positive thing. However, depending on the cause of that inflammation, and chronic inflammation is a very negative thing, starts to cause that neuroplastic change in the brain that we were talking about earlier. But gut health has really been understood since about 2008 in terms of how the microbiome in our small intestine and large intestine affects our overall body. And as an example, many foods out there, especially in this country and modern world, have additives and things that are actually causing inflammation at the gut level, which is causing the cells of the gut, instead of being a nice tight barrier to our bloodstream, will inflame and you start to create space. So we're getting pieces of undigested food and things that we're taking into our bloodstream. And when our immune system sees that, what does it see it as? It doesn't see it as a piece of steak. It sees it as some kind of invader that needs to be attacked. So when you're getting chronic leaky gut and having pieces of food come in and you eat those things on a regular basis, it's usually stuff you like a lot. Those invaders are going to be now hit by your immune system, causing inflammation, but it's usually going to be widespread. Now, that being said, that elbow of yours might only be inflamed because there's just more inflammation in your body. And otherwise, if there's some minor injury there or just some kind of overuse from typing at the computer, you might not even know it's there. But because you have an exceeding amount of inflammation in your body because of gut issues, that can give you the idea that you have a musculoskeletal problem when you really only have an inflammation in the gut problem, causing the symptoms there that normally wouldn't be there.
Same thing with sciatic too. Some sciatic comes from what gut. So when as a yoga person told me that somebody said I have sciatic nerve, the first thing I want to do is start working on the core because I already got pain here. I'm like, all right, but if I try to work there, you're gonna hate me. But if I try to work that core, you're gonna love me because the problem is not really in the sciatic. The problem is coming from the gut.
So that's anywhere in the body, any pain in the body. And typically When there is inflammation like that, there's other things, digestive issues, bloating, headaches, poor sleep. There's a lot of things. And you can actually, again, test to see, first of all, if you're sensitive to some foods. There's food sensitivity tests you can take. You can map the entire gut biome and know, do you have bacteria in there that shouldn't be in there? And are they causing a problem by getting food that you're not digesting properly and feeding off of that and growing? You can't just throw probiotics at that. If you take probiotics and you have bad bacteria, the bad bacteria is going to take those probiotics and turn them into the dark side, and they're going to become an overgrowth of more of that stuff. So if you really want to dig, it's true. If you want to dig down deep, you can map your gut biome and know systematically, how do I get rid of the bad stuff, heal the gut, and then feed the good stuff. So that's a few months in process, but people that are suffering from something like that is definitely something that now we know how to handle and do something about. But again, it takes a daily activity of doing certain things, to starting with, again, avoiding foods that we shouldn't be eating and so on. But these things can be identified, and now you can really make a plan for people to do something about it, not just take Tums or whatever else they might be taking, or take an anti-inflammatory because your elbow hurts.
There you have it, everybody. I told you we stitch you out the feet of the masters. This was a great conversation. Last question, Dr. David. What books are we reading?
So I'm an audio guy. I listen better than I read. And so I'm always looking at some new directions as it pertains to healthcare, in the sense that I'm looking at peptides. Peptides have been around for the last few years, and we're looking how they can help stimulate positive processes in our body. So they might start to stimulate the pituitary gland to make more growth hormone, or how we can, stimulate more healing if we have injuries. I'm also looking, again, regenerative medicine, stem cells, exosomes, PRP, for use in trying to regenerate things, because the information's out there. Again, looking at different parts of nutrition and how can we really hone in on our individual nutrition through testing and custom supplementation, and utilize that stuff. But I'm also looking at red light therapy. I'm looking at something called methylene blue, which is a powerful antioxidant that can really help to optimize oxygenation at the cell level, thereby driving your energy production at that cell level to optimal. Because where we start when we're looking at health truly, we're looking at that basic unit of function. That cell has to be oxygenated, and you got to be making energy at that top level. So these are the areas that I'm looking at, because I see here in the office how I can use that information to impact the life of myself and my patients.
Thank you very much. Listen, everyone, you can walk around any kind of way that you choose. You can walk around after hearing this episode, still making excuses, not doing the things necessary to optimize the one thing that you have, which is more precious than time, is your body. You can walk around in pain and choose to turn a deaf ear to all of the information that you got. Or you can walk with us. Dr. David now is a part of our Walk in Victory family. We decide to walk in victory, and we invite you on this victory walk. If you need Dr. David's information, it is in the link in our bio, in our description for this particular episode. And there you can go, and he's ready and willing, and as you can see, more than capable of helping lead us in the right path and or direction. We don't ask you for Venmos, Cash Apps, or any of those things, but what we do ask is for your likes and subscriptions. So hit and subscribe right now so that we can go in the algorithm and have this information to reach as many people as possible that need to hear what it is that we discussed today. But most of all, after you do that, make sure that you enjoy your victory walk. Peace.
Amen, brother.
Your name.
This has been another episode of Walk in Victory podcast, where we sit you at the feet of the masters. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and found inspiration and valuable insights to apply to your own life. If you did, please show us some love by liking and subscribing to the podcast. Your support helps us reach more people and share more stories of triumph over adversity. Until next time, keep walking towards victory. And don't forget to follow us on social media for updates and behind-the-scenes glimpses of our episodes.